This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing again, and that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
It's Saturday and the game is on. 10 minutes in, it's 3-0. I'm sipping back on a can. I don't give a damn if it's 9 a.m. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. Give me beer or whiskey, wine or gin, anything to shake this mood I'm in. My football team's got me drinking.
Christmas came early, boys.
Talk about an injection of capital.
Injection of capital. It was real.
That was more than an injection. That was like a whole course of treatment right there.
Backed up the Brinks truck and just dumped it.
Okay, we are the Blue Testament. I said it wrong. Our name's too long. My name is Cody Bradley. I have in the studio with me tonight Thad Bell and a newcomer, our very own Jimmy Mack.
How's it going, guys?
We're very happy that you were able to join.
I am happy as well. We've been trying to do this for a little while, and
I know.
schedules did not line up. But
adult life, trying to get people to drive to Kansas. I know, It's not easy.
I thought you did it one day when I was gone.
I did not know. Cody
No.
Cody keeps messaging me, hey, can you come on the podcast? And I'm like, yesterday I could have. Tomorrow I could.
And I do
but
it.
Not today.
I do it about 3 hours before we record.
Which is part of the problem.
Which, for the reference, the day before, I'm always like, do we want to get anybody else? And then I don't hear from Cody till like the afternoon of.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, get somebody. I'm like,
You gotta ping me. Always ping me in Slack.
Yeah. This one worked because he asked me yesterday.
Yeah.
And not 3 hours ago.
I know. It was good. So, yes, Jimmy's here. A little cross-pod promotion.
That's right. Coming from No Other Pod. Give it a check if you haven't. Listen to it. It's good stuff. I enjoy it.
Best name of a pod.
Yeah, I don't know how.
In the SKC ecosystem.
Don't know how we came up with that. It just was a stroke of brilliance, I guess.
Was it before or after No Other Pub?
It was after, because our pod logo, I literally took the No Other Pub logo and photoshopped pub into pod.
Nice.
I flipped the O from no to give it that mirror effect for pod, and yeah. Probably violating some copyright laws, but whatever.
Just the mediocre Photoshop skills. All
you should trademark that and see if you can then force them to change.
Yeah, that's right. There you go.
Capitalistic.
Or at least get free beer out of it.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, at least maybe people will think I'm somewhat affiliated with the club just by association.
Yeah.
Give it a little bit of a boost. Yeah.
Definitely.
Fake it till you make it. So
Christmas has come early. I'm opening a beer right now in celebration. I already had one while we were warming up for this pod. Okay, so Christmas come early. Let's just start off. The big deal here is, like Thad said, the injection of capital. We're in a new era, MLS 3.0. So before we actually, get into Alan Pulido and what he's going to bring, I want to talk about what it means for the team and the league.
Well, the league, I think you could argue that ever since Atlanta, really, as much as I don't like to give Atlanta credit for things, they came into the league and they had an idea that they were going to spend like people had not spent before. And you saw that with the Miguel Almiron signings and Joseph Martinez and then Ezequiel Barco. And I think it became evident to Peter Vermes and Sporting KC that with teams like Atlanta, LAFC, and then Seattle and the Galaxy, even Portland spending more money, NYCFC, this sort of Moneyball tactic of we're a small market team, we can't spend, wasn't going to hold up anymore. And if they wanted to keep up, they had to spend some money.
Well, and that's that's like good. That's kind of right where I wanted to go with this. Now he realized that the Moneyball wasn't working, but it was 2 seasons ago that it did kind of work. That they won the West and they were there, and that's why, everyone still wants to talk about Ike Opara, and Ike has to be right now somewhere wondering like what the hell now they're spending the money, and that's what it comes down to. It's like it took that bad season to realize Moneyball wasn't going to work, because it almost freaking did. And what was it, 2017? That's when they did all that. The
2018.
That was 2018.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean.
Just last year, but 2 seasons ago.
Right. After, after that happened, they're like, okay, maybe we can still do this. And I think it took getting their ass kicked, which in the form of Sporting Kansas City is just not making the playoffs, which we're lucky. Remember that, everyone. That's getting our ass kicked.
We're Bobby Warshaw's 4th best team of the decade.
Yeah, I'll take it.
And we give a lot of credence to that.
Yep.
And we've spent a fraction of all of those other teams. So, so yes. But now they've realized it. Sorry, Ike. If only. But at least now they've realized this. MLS 3.0.
Ike is still a different situation. I mean, people are going to say that all the time. People are going to say that forever. But that's still a different situation. It's totally different trying to pay your own defender X amount of dollars versus bringing in some star from another league. And that's going to always be different.
It's easy, it's easy to, in hindsight, say that it didn't work, but they did have a fancy-footed Barcelona prospect at the same time.
Yes.
And that their own defender was a guy who was injury-prone.
Yeah. So, and the rest of that story, just really quickly, is I think they would have paid him more money if his agent had not made it public. And that's the thing.
This
Peter has a line with that, right?
Yeah.
You don't trash us in public, right? And which is kind of what the agent does by saying, "Hey, they're not paying my guy a fair amount of money," even though they negotiated a contract the year before that, right? Mm-hmm. Not saying he didn't deserve more money, and he did, and I'm very confident that they would have paid him more money, maybe not as much as he wanted, but considerably. They have the TAM GAM money all flowing around and stuff. Mm-hmm. They could have done something with him for the later that year. But that just wasn't a priority, right at that moment. But once you trash the club in public,
right,
Peter's done with you. It's not Ike's fault; it's his agent's fault.
Well, and I also think Kansas City is often like that with all of our sports teams. Like, if someone doesn't want to be here, we don't want you here.
Right.
I'm like, you can get out of here. And now I only bring that. So Zach Greinke, I love Zach Greinke as much as anyone. But the second he didn't want to be here and he wanted to go find something else, all right, fine. Get out of here. We don't want you here.
Yeah.
But the Ike situation is different.
Yeah, and it's not that Ike didn't want to be here.
Because
he did.
Because in MLS, you just don't. It's harder to make the money than it is in other sports. And Ike deserved more money. He was great. He deserved the money. There's nothing about his mentality that you could fault in any of that.
Yeah, that's a situation where I don't think there was actually anybody at the time who was really at fault other than Ike's agent. Ike wanted more money, and he deserved more money.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then his agent made the mistake of taking it public, and Peter didn't do anything wrong because as the technical director, as the coach, you can't give in to the public demands of a player, because then that sets the precedent of every agent who wants a raise for their under contract player will just demand more money publicly, and the club will give in.
Oh yeah, my agent says we got to have more money.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a slippery slope that you don't want to go down. It's easier to trade them, get a bunch of cash out of that, and then somebody else can deal with the issue, and then they can look like the good guy, and you don't have that same issue, hopefully, in the near future. No other agent does it. So I know people are going to say this forever, right? Mm-hmm. And the other complicating factor is just how damn MLS contract and roster rules work. It's hard to just, okay, we're going to give you a bigger contract. We can't just do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to injection of capital, which is justified.
Right. So the question becomes, at least the thing we've seen going around is Mexico, the original reports out of Mexico were 9.5 million. And now it looks like, Andy Edwards and Weeby at MLS are claiming they heard somewhere closer to 6. Which 6, I'm all aboard for 6. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Here's what I wouldn't be surprised if this is what was happening. The reports of 9.5 million came out of Mexico. It came from a Liga MX reporter. It came from Fox Sports Mexico.
Where things leak all the time.
Yeah, so that
unlike this league,
it would behoove Chivas for that number to be closer to 9.5 million. Now, Andy Edwards and Andrew Wiebe, I'm sure their sources are closer to the Sporting KC side of things. I have no idea who their sources are, but that would be my natural guess.
Yeah,
it would behoove Sporting KC for that number to be closer to 6 million, even if it wasn't really. It would be better for Sporting KC if people thought they spent 6 million.
Oh yeah, just muddy the waters a bit there for sure.
Yeah, because then, as you know, I don't know how many people were able to read Peter's quotes, or maybe if you were on the call, but he talked about this idea of sort of plateau negotiating when they were talking about the transfer on the media conference call. And
let's go ahead and play that.
Sure.
Right now. I'm going to play that right now, and then we'll talk about it.
There's a thing called plateau negotiating, and sometimes when you hit the plateau, you never go down from there. So I'm going to assume that, we're in this world now, and we're going to continue to be in this world. But I also think that our league is in this world as well. And so it's just a part of the evolution. I know that there's been a lot made about, how big this transfer was and how much money we spent and all those other things. But I also think you have to take into consideration that we also feel that we got the right person. And that's the key is being able to make a deal like this, but also making sure that the acquisition of the person is the right person. And we do feel that with Alan.
Peter Vermes, just given the best answer always.
Yeah, he's got away with words when he's not mad at you and staring at you with his death stare.
Yeah, very interesting point, the plateau negotiating.
I did actually Google that today, just see if there was some scholarly subject of plateau negotiating. I couldn't find it. So.
Peter made it up. It's
I only got a page and a half into results, so I didn't really look that deep. But
coined it.
But it makes sense, and that's why I think it would behoove Sporting KC to put out that report, if you will, or that leak that the number's closer to 6 million, because basically what he's saying is, okay, if people know we have this much money to spend now, we're not going to be able to go back to spending on the cheap because people know that we have that capital behind us.
Still limited by MLS rules, though. I mean, they can't spend $9 million on every player.
No, right. Only for the designated players.
Right.
But yeah, but I mean, if we really are in MLS 3.0, as Peter says, and he kind of says, we're in this world now and we're going to continue to be in this world. He's thinking that we're not going to go back to the, under $1 million transfer fee designated players that are, when you amortize the transfer fee and the salary, they're barely above that threshold anymore.
Yeah.
Gerso was a designated player once upon a time.
Right.
Gerso has not performed, nor does he register anywhere near a designated player when you compare him to other designated players around the league.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of designated players that didn't do a lot also. And I've had this argument with other people is designated player really doesn't mean much of anything anymore. It actually might mean a little bit more now than it did the last couple of years.
Sure.
At one point it meant a lot. It was the Beckham thing, right?
Right.
And then lots of players came in and it was just the guys who were paid a little bit more than, the Beaslers and Zusi and Espinoza were all DPs.
Yeah.
Just because of how much they were paid.
Yeah.
So that question, 6 million or 9.5 million, either way.
That's just change, right?
Right.
Either way is significantly more than the entire the total amount of transfer fees, as we learned that Vermes told us in his last press conference. That was about $4 million in his entire tenure here. And even if it is 6 million, that is just an absurd jump. That shows they were not messing around in those, those couple articles we've talked about in past weeks that came out where they said they were going to do this, and they talked about jumping 1, 2, or 3 tiers. That is just exactly what this is.
This is 3 tiers.
That's 3 tiers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out what 3 tiers meant, right? At one point, I'm sitting there looking at players what does that mean?
1 tier is significantly more. 2 tiers would double it. 3 tier is
obliterated.
is 150% over everything you've ever spent. Like that's just wild.
Yeah, I think. I mean, we don't truly know exactly what transfer fees were for people in the past, but I think if I remember right, Johan is supposedly the most expensive transfer fee we've ever paid, and I think
that's what they said.
The rumors that I saw, like if you look at transfer market and whatnot, and that's not always totally accurate, but I think it was maybe around $1.5 million, if that, for him. So I mean, if you assume for the sake of the conversation that's mildly accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Going from anywhere around $1.5 million to even $6 million, potentially up to $9.5 million for a player. Yeah, they're not messing around.
Yeah, no, they are not, and it's beautiful. And I scrolled back. I went and looked through SKC Twitter the day before it, and was just looking at we had mentions for #Fire Vermes. Like it's just. I part of me thinks that they knew all of this was happening and they wanted to troll people just a little bit, just see who the real fans were.
Yeah, you don't think bringing back Kyrie on a free satisfied all those people who wanted that DP striker?
Like, and so that was kind of my thing with that was I didn't think that was the real signing, but also, like, oh shit, what if it is? Like I get all of the frustration that everybody else had.
Yeah.
You can get why they were jaded.
I think over the last couple of years, it's to an extent understandable why people would be skeptical that the striker was ever going to come. Ever since we traded away Dom Dwyer, there were talks of we're trying to get this number 9, this DP to come in. And
I always called the mythical DP number 9.
Yeah,
that was my fantasy MLS team name last year.
I mean, even a few years ago after that trade, when Peter was saying, or I don't remember if Peter said there were reports that Sporting KC had, 8 figures to spend maybe on a strike, and it's just, but it always came back to we got to find the right person. And then I think people just ended up thinking that we just were never going to find the right person.
Well, and so that's what I was on this conference call today was hoping, because I'm not jumping in there. I was hoping that someone is going to at some point ask him the question about that. Jimmy and I kind of talked about this before you got here, Thad. That he did make that point always. Peter Vermes is that guy. We know he is never going to overspend just because people are saying to spend some money. And I don't know exactly how to ask a question. And if you don't know that answer, know how to ask it, don't ask Peter Vermes a question. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to present this to him. But it's, it would just give him an opportunity to, again, reestablish that this guy we picked the right guy, to him to say, I didn't just, all right, here's someone that we finally got to agree to come here. Let's throw some money at him. I would like to hear him talk more on that.
I will try to ask him that next time it's a small group of people. Not that conference call today sucked for trying to do, because there's probably 30 people on there from 2-3 different countries and all around the country, and
nobody knows how to mute their phone.
And Pulido being one of them, did not know how to do that at all. He was like, hello?
Yeah. There's that sucked. They Sporting PR guys, we love you, but next time you do one this big, you need to have it be a moderated one where everybody's muted by
default
by the operator, and they have to press a button hand to get a call in, to raise a question, and so just do it that way. Sorry.
Yeah,
that was fun. I liked sitting in there hearing all the people announce themselves, though.
Yeah, well, because you would jump on, it would be like, please announce your stuff, and I was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, it told me to do it, and
immediately
I was
mute.
Oh.
I did.
Well, and so I don't.
But I also did it the way I normally do it. Like all these people, I'm Paul Tenorio with the Athletic or something. I went, this is Thad.
Yeah.
That's all.
This is Thad.
Well,
they know me.
Hey guys.
I was on the exact same page that you were, Thad. I know there's probably 4 of us on the Blue Testament that are listening.
Yeah.
And I didn't want all these people to hear 5 Blue Testament people.
Yeah. Well, because the 3 of us were
just Cody Bradley.
Chad, I think, was on it as well because he was live tweeting the whole thing.
Yeah.
But shout out to Chad.
I missed a big. So I was on that conference call and missed a big conference call for my job.
That's good.
But it was just this Cumulus Media, this big media conglomerate. It was just, the CEO was just blabbering about nonsense. You know what I mean? Just corporate.
You might want to cut this part out later.
Hopefully your CEO doesn't listen to
jibber jabber. No one cares.
Shades of Blue. This is a top podcast,
man.
Cody.
Okay, but so one other thing I wanted to talk about here on the money situation was there's an article on MLS. Oh, it's Weeby's article. He talks about that of the top 20 scorers in MLS last season, only 2 of them, Sapong and Castellanos, made less than the minimum budget charge. Of the top 20 goal scorers.
Less than the maximum budget charge?
Yeah. Right. I said minimum, sorry, yeah. That is just, that's mind-blowing. That's right there, like MLS 3.0. You absolutely, end of the line, you got to start spending more money.
Okay, so, but still talking about this injection and this huge injection of capital, right? The amount of money. I pulled up Transfer Market, the top transfers in MLS history, okay? So this is in and out.
What's the metric there of top transfer? Most expensive transfer.
Right.
Okay.
And again, I don't have any faith that these are exactly accurate numbers. And they were also supposedly in euros, which doesn't seem right either. But Miguel Almiron to Newcastle, $24 million. Pity Martinez to Atlanta, $14.5 million. Barco to Atlanta, $12.28 million. Alphonso Davies to Bayern Munich, $10 million. Pulido to SKC, $9.5. Fourth highest incoming transfer, according to Transfer Market, was Pulido coming to Kansas City.
Wow.
After that, it's 9 for Pozzello, however you say his name, to Toronto. Fernandez to Portland. That went well.
You said Almiron was $24 million?
According to Transfer Market.
And that was the outgoing.
To Newcastle.
That's why I was like, there's no freaking way that they spent that much money, did they? So, okay, I thought... so
incoming was 7.5.
Okay.
That's on my list here also. I went from Almiron to Almiron, literally on the list.
The record incoming transfer, I think, is still Ezekiel Barco for about $15 million. As far as I know, that's the record that an MLS club has spent to acquire a player to come into.
Martinez.
Barco. And what did he do?
Supposedly is higher.
Which Martinez?
Pity.
Oh, his higher than Barco?
Yeah, that was the year after.
Okay. So Atlanta's got 1 and 2.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, 14.5 and 12.2.
Also, it should be noted, asterisk next to Barco's name, started fooling around with one of his teammates' wives.
Yeah.
Never forget that.
Don't do that.
However much money that transfer was, that's what you got out of it, was sleeping with a teammate's wife.
Not a good way to endear yourselves to your teammates.
Still better than Brian Fernandez in Portland.
It's true.
Yeah, Jimmy, you said that earlier. Like, you didn't want to give Atlanta credit. God, I'm so exactly right there. But they did, man. That changed the league.
Yeah.
Very quickly. And I always was kind of thinking, we'll see. Yes, they did that for this new team and all that. We'll see like how long this ownership group can continue to buy those players. But if you're going to sell Almiron for $24 million, then
I don't think Arthur Blank's hurting for money either.
Yeah, he could lose $24 million a year.
Well, I know. Hurting for money is one thing, but then, like, one of these guys they spent all this money on is not going to pan out perfectly. And, they're not going to be the top of the league for a couple years, and then we'll see. I've just been intrigued to see, like, what happens with this team after several years.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, I think, when you think about this injection of capital for Sporting KC, is a team like Atlanta or LAFC or even NYCFC, backed by City Football Group, Manchester City, they're going to be more able to bounce back if they do miss on one of these larger transfers. If Barco hadn't worked out because he wrecked the locker room and they had to cut their losses on this $12, $13, $14 million player, it's not like Atlanta's like, well, now we can't buy a player again for the next 5 years because we've spent all our money. What we don't know quite yet is, okay, we all hope Pulido works out, but there's no guarantee that he comes here and is...
That's the frightening thing.
Right. So what happens if we spent 6, 9.5, whatever, however many millions of dollars it is, and it doesn't work out? Is that going to scare the ownership group from ever spending that kind of money again? Like this, there's a lot riding on this signing working out, not just on the field, but sort of behind the scenes as far as spending money in the future goes, I think. Yeah,
and that'll be interesting. We heard in the press conference that Vermes is already trying to, what happened with the guy we were just talking about that already left.
Almiron?
No, the best player in MLS. Johan, god dang, I forgot. I forgot Quase's name for a second. That happened with him. Like, they spent all year downplaying the DP label.
Yeah.
And like, oh, that it doesn't mean anything. It's just the situations. We have other players that are making well over. And they've already, Vermes has tried to minimize the impact of this, record-breaking deal, but there's no getting around that. I don't want to look at it like that either, but this is more money than they've ever spent by a long shot. And there's no way that if it doesn't go right, that will hurt this organization badly.
Well,
right?
I think it's not just the money, it's that it took almost 3 full years to actually come to fruition, and people have been reading on MLSsoccer.com, Sporting KC's just a striker away. Sporting KC's just, that was the thing that was said all throughout 2018. Mm-hmm. They just get a striker and they can win MLS Cup, and then it didn't happen, and then we fell apart in 2019. So the fee combined with the time it's taken to actually find this person, there's going to be a lot of high expectations.
Yeah, and so I get that entirely. You don't want to make a big deal about that, but there's just there's no getting around it, it feels like.
Oh, yeah, no, it's definitely there. Again, I'll counter just a little bit. They did get a DP number 9 striker for 2019.
They did.
Amos.
They did.
And he scored
did he have a
dozen
DP
goals.
Tag? I didn't remember.
He didn't have a DP tag, but he was over $1 million.
I mean, he was because
over,
Revolution.
Yeah, again, that's why I don't care about the DP title because that doesn't matter.
This
look at the
DP
amount
title,
of dollar.
This DP title matters.
This one matters.
This one matters because it's just the $9.5 million matters. The title doesn't matter. It's after
That's more than Atlanta United spent to get Joseph Martinez from Torino in Italy. They spent supposedly around $7 million to get him. I'm not saying Pulido's going to come in and break Joseph Martinez's goal scoring records, but he's the Liga MX Golden Boot winner for the Apertura, most recent sort of mini season that they do. 12 goals in 18 games. Now, many of them came from the penalty spot, but the ones that came from the run of play, he looked skillful and talented. So will it translate?
Well, and one thing I liked from before I got off of the press conference call today was he seemed to allude to it's kind of hard because he's talking through a translator, but it seemed like he alluded to the idea that he's mid-season in Liga MX. He gets this interest from Sporting Kansas City and a couple other MLS teams, and it sounded to me like he said that pumped him up, that kind of inspired him, and then he scored 5 goals in the last 3 games of the season. And so he was like, that kind of inspired me, and then I won the Golden Boot.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty odd. I don't know if it was just he saw this money that that MLS was about to offer, but hey, if that's he's in form.
He is. That's true. I mean, he's won just about every award at this point that you can win. Yeah. I mean, he's won CONCACAF Champions League with Chivas. I think he's won a league title or 2. He's won the Golden Boot now.
There were 7 club titles, at least according to that. One of them was in Greece.
Yeah, it's been a while since he's been capped with the Mexican national team, but he has scored in Children's Mercy Park for the Mexican national team a number of years ago. So it'll be an interesting signing to see what happens.
It was like the U23 team, though.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. I was trying to remember why I wasn't at that game, and then I went, oh, it was a U23 team.
I think he has 11 or 14 caps for the actual national team.
He was on the 14 World Cup roster, just did not feature in the World Cup. But so that's a natural. We can just move on to actually about the player himself.
Attributes. Can I ask another question about money, though?
Of course.
Now, because Peter said at least one player per line. They've gotten 2 forwards and a defender. There's still no midfielder that's been signed that we know of. Are they going to throw another chunk of cash, an injection at some other player? Are we going to be even more shocked when a $4 million player, a $4 million transfer fee, a $3 million transfer fee, something like that is paid for a midfielder on top of $6 to $9.5 million? Well,
I've got part of that conversation on our docket for later.
Okay.
But that does, the Lautaro Giannetti, that rumor that also came out just an hour after the signing did.
Yeah, I was trying not to say that part.
So, yes.
You told me not to. I was trying to be good and not say that.
Cody's breaking his own rules.
You brought up the topic, though. Yes. So we will talk more about that later. But, yes, that will, this is an absurd amount of money that they're doing. And yes, if they sign anybody else, it's going to be like, holy crap, this is real.
I mean, Peter said it himself. We're in this world now, and we're probably going to stay in this world. People now know Sporting KC has money to spend. I don't think people would really believe Sporting KC if they were like, sorry, we happen to have $9.5 million in the bank, and oh, look at that, we've spent it all.
Yeah,
So,
but you're not worth that.
yeah.
Well, and we talked about this beforehand and kind of forgot about it, but whenever he was saying that, you get the impression he was almost like a little sad about it.
Yeah, and like remembering, fond memories of days gone by.
Days of yore.
When he could scrap together a team of, scrappy Jacob Petersons.
And Seth Stanovics.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy
we probably don't have a
Madrondas.
lot of those anymore.
No.
Actually, he'll always have those kind of Jacob Peterson guys on the team that will find way more playing time than the fans want him to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Somehow get in there and at some point score a goal at just the right time that keeps him around for another year.
That's so true.
Jacob Peterson, Birham D-Hop.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we kind of already got into it a little bit. Top goal scorer in Liga MX. What else have we seen from, our short YouTube videos of the player? What have you seen from him? What kind of player do we got here?
He seems like, from what I've read and from the Chivas put out a highlight video of all of his goals from 2019.
Yeah.
He seems like he's a guy who's comfortable with the ball at his feet. I don't get the impression he's like the fastest guy on the field, but in the highlight package they put out, he would get the ball sort of at or near the box and was able to skillfully use his feet to create some space for himself, dribble around some defenders, make some moves, and give himself a lane to shoot. He also had a nifty header at one point.
Yeah, so I saw that was an amazing header. That looked really good. But I did, reading some other stuff about him, I think that was maybe Weeby's thing on MLS, said he's not known to be a header of the ball at all.
Although Weeby did say to hedge his bets at the beginning. Now, I haven't watched a lot of Alan Pulido, so I don't know much about him.
One game.
There was no header in that game, so he must not be good at it. But
one of the highlight goals was a header where he flicked it on to the back corner.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah,
right?
It was gorgeous.
Freaking beautiful.
Yeah, so perhaps that was just luck.
Could be.
Peter said he was a good header of the ball. Couple of the sites I will go just dig through different review sites and player things, and one of them said he wasn't good with the head, with his head, but
maybe that's where Weeby got that.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it does seem like, from what I've read and from what I've seen, he does do well with the ball at his feet. I forget where I read. Maybe it was Weeby, so I'm undercutting my own argument if I go back and now quote Weeby.
Yeah, you can't. You should just know now. You should not quote a Weeby.
But he has great off the ball movement, from what I understand, which is what Kyrie was also known for. He could draw defenders away to create lanes for Johnny or Felipe or even Daniel Shalhoub to make runs. He just seems like he's got a little bit more of that finishing, or a lot more of that finishing touch than at least Kyrie showed in 2018 here with Sporting KC. Kyrie could use his body very well, but he could never put the ball. Now Kyrie's 6'2" and probably 180 pounds, and Pulido is 5'9", 150 pounds. So they both might have hold-up play in a sense. Now it'll be a different kind of hold-up play.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
I've had this argument with other people, but I always felt Shelton didn't use his body as well in the box as far as being offensive. He used it better outside and get the ball and some of the defensive effort and stuff like that. He just didn't use it to create his own chances. He sometimes used it to help combine, but not his own chances.
Yeah, there was one highlight I remember from a Vancouver game, I think in October 2018. That was I had been waiting all year for. He just muscled a center back straight off of a 50-50 ball.
Yeah.
He didn't create the chance for himself. He just tapped it back to Shalhoub, who slotted it in the goal. But
that was my favorite Kirby goal.
Yeah.
By the way, we're calling him Kirby now from a typo on our
Kyrie.
Yeah.
Somebody tried
Kirby
to type,
Sheldon.
Somebody tried to type Kyrie in reference to that signing and typed Kirby.
Kirby Sheldon is an entirely different person than Kyrie Shelton. I'll tell you that. One is great at soccer, and one is a low-level accountant somewhere in
That's
Minnesota.
funny. That's funny because I was telling my wife I was going to start using that as like a alias, for different things. And I was kind of joking. I said, but that's a great name because you could really go either way with it. Because the Kirby could be like this strong, powerful name, right? Or it could be just like this accountant who's like talking to you about, do you have your receipts for your last purchase?
This is Kirby calling. It's time to do your 2020 taxes.
I'm more inclined to believe the latter as opposed to the former.
Yeah, I am too, but yeah.
But I think it'll be interesting to see, Peter always talked about that Namath was supposed to be good with the ball at his feet and be able to make runs and whatnot. We never really saw that materialize in 2019. We saw that in 2015 somewhat when he was playing on the wing.
Yeah.
But if Pulido is as good as that as he can say, if he can make those runs, create some space, it'll just not only create chances for himself, but it'll create some space for Johnny to cut in off the right side. Maybe we see a return to form for Daniel coming in off the left. If he still holds down that spot, it might be Jerso.
Daniel or Jerso or
some unnamed player.
Kyrie.
Or Kyrie, yeah.
We'll talk more about how he fits into the team.
I thought we weren't even going to talk about any of the stats stuff until the second part, so I figured we're right in that spot.
No, you didn't listen to my rundown before.
I wasn't paying attention.
No, but so where I'm at on like the kind of player that we've gotten here is Sporting has had like Dom Dwyer. He's a good striker. A lot of people
in the right team, he is absolutely
right.
Actually, he absolutely is.
In 2014 MLS.
And Namath
2.0.
Namath could do a lot very well, but it just seemed like we kept, and even Kyrie, when Kyrie was doing it, there's all the talk about everything else that he did that was good, but it just seems like there was striker after striker for this team that just failed to be the guy that you knew would put away an easy chance when given to him. Dom Dwyer missed sitters like it was his job.
And penalty kicks.
Namath came in and, he had the goal of the year in 16 or 15, whatever it was. Incredible. But also he would get in his own head and miss easy ones. And so I just feel like, a proven Liga MX goal scorer coming over here, everything we've seen about all other Liga MX strikers that come here, it translates. They continue to score goals here.
They get better.
And so it's, I think that for everyone, frustrated SKC Nation, this guy is that guy that I think you can believe will just put away those chances when given to them. And Thad, you always talked about Jerso all year last year. Jerso should have had 15 more assists than he had,
A dozen more assists is what I always said.
Oh, a dozen. There you go. A dozen. And that's probably true.
Yeah.
And
if anybody in the center could have put away a goal, Nemo, Shallowy, whoever else was there, Hurtado, Gianluca
Buzio, when we had both of our strikers injured or gone on international duty.
Yeah. Johan.
And so beyond any of that, like how he fits in, what formations they're going to play, which we will talk about, it seems like we got that guy. Like he's a proven goal scorer. He's going to put the ball in the net.
Yeah.
And so I think we can all feel like a bit of a sigh of relief.
Now, again, everybody has to remember, any good striker in the world has their hot streaks and their cold streaks. Mm-hmm. He'll score 5 goals in 4 games, and then he'll go 5 games with no goal.
Yep.
But hopefully he combines. Doesn't have a lot of assists in his career, but he was always like the lone forward kind of guy, it looked like, in most situations. We need to talk about how he's going to fit into the team in the next segment. I'll shut up.
Yes, and we'll do that here coming up. We're going to take a break right now, and we'll talk about all that and more with more Shades of Blue Soccer Show.
But it's a football night. But it's a football night. We can gather all the friends all around the tomb. That's not a bad thing to do. But it's a football night. But it's a football night. When the final whistle blows, we're gonna celebrate tonight. When the final whistle blows, we're gonna celebrate tonight. When the final whistle blows, you know we're gonna feel alright.
All right. Alan Pulido.
Alan.
Yeah?
I don't know. That's just what I heard someone say in the conference call today.
I'm going with what Ali said in the press conference today. She said Alan. And that was, I think, when I was reading, the press release, I think that's how they had it. Alan Pulido. It literally said in the pronunciation, P-O-O.
I'm going to say, hey, number 9.
There we go. Okay.
Number 9.
So let's talk about expectations for Alan Pulido. Can he possibly live up to $6 million or $9.5 million?
$1 million a goal. No, wait. That would not be good.
that would not be living up to expectations.
Yeah, $500,000 per goal?
Well, okay, so if you look at, he scored, what was it, 12 goals, 13 goals this year in Liga MX in 18 games. I think it was 12 and 18, which was enough for the Golden Boot for the Apertura. So if you extrapolate that out, MLS season is 34 games. So, I mean, if he did it at that pace, that'd be about 20 goals per year if it translates 1-to-1. Now, it might not necessarily do that, but I mean, honestly, if Sporting KC has a striker who gets more than 15 goals in a year, that's something that we haven't had in a long time.
So you just said the rate that he had would go to 20 goals in MLS?
Roughly. So he played 18 games. If you double that, that's 36. So that's 2 more than he would have in MLS. So
I was reading an article that had it.
I'm doing math in my head, so I might be wrong.
Well, you wouldn't be far off because 12 and 18 would be 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
2 goals out of every 3 games.
So it'd be roughly
34
slightly
games
more
would
than
be
20.
21.
I was being a conservative estimate. It'd probably be closer, 21,
But
22.
that also doesn't take into account the actual minutes played.
Right.
And various other sundry things.
If he hits 20 goals this year, I mean, it is absolutely a success by, I think, all measures, assuming that he's not scoring 20 of Sporting KC's 30 goals on the year.
Yeah, he's got to do some other stuff with that.
All right, I can't find the tweet now, but I was thinking somebody had it at the exact same rate would have had him at like 12 to 14 or something like that.
Well,
but I guess he scored 12 in the season. So.
Yeah.
All right, I guess I don't know what I was looking at. So,
But that's here's the difference is what we're talking about is just from the last Apertura, however you say that.
Mm-hmm.
And what other people are looking at is over his entire career or
Right.
over the time since he came back to Mexico, one or the other. And he's not been prolific all of his life. He's been a not bad scorer for most of his time, but he's not been the Golden Boot guy.
Right.
He's not been competing for that because everybody else who had it has already moved on to MLS or elsewhere.
Right. Okay.
That is kind of the downside to him. I don't want to say he's bad in any way, shape, or form, but he's taken a while to get to this point where he's been that consistent. And I know we said before, like half of those goals were penalties.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, one thing to give people hope is we alluded to other goal scorers who have come from Liga MX have done better than they have in MLS than they had in Liga MX. In his article on MLSsoccer.com, Weeby had pulled together from someone pulled together for him, or he took it from somebody, goals per 90 for some goal scorers who came from Liga MX and compared them to their goals per 90 in MLS. And
this is what I was referencing.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go, give all of the numbers. Basically, Raul Ruidiaz, Darwin Quintero, Brian Fernandez, even though he's not with the Timbers anymore, and Gustavo Bou, all of them, their goals per 90 increased in MLS over what it was in Mexico. In Gustavo Bou's case, his goals per 90 increased from 0.45 in Liga MX to 0.7 in MLS, which, I mean, it's like a 50% increase.
Yeah.
So Alan Pulido, for his career in Liga MX, his goals per 90 is 0.41. So maybe that's, if you extrapolate that out to 34 games, maybe that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I would hope that he would take that step forward and increase his goals per 90 like these other players who are attacking forwards that came from Liga MX did as well.
Yeah, that's a great stat.
It is not mine. I can't claim it.
I could inject that into my veins. Although, not for MLS. It doesn't make MLS look very good, but...
Hey, we already know where MLS is at.
We know our place.
but
Don't
it's
tell Don Garber.
but that gap
Yeah, Garber doesn't.
that gap is closing because we're taking all their best players.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So I also did like some digging into Chivas just this last half season, Apturo, whatever, and he scored like the bulk of the goals for Chivas in this last season because he had the 12, and then I think the next was 5 and a 4, and then several ones. But it's like there was no other. I think there was a right winger that had 3 or 4 maybe. So it wasn't like a lot of other guys putting in goals for them. He was the focus of their goal scoring. So he didn't have, I think he had like 1 assist maybe in this last season, 1 or 2. It wasn't a lot.
If it was just 1, it came like in the last 3
Google
games.
showing
I
2,
think.
I think. Yeah.
5 goals and 1 assist in the last 3 games to
Yeah.
close out the season.
Yeah.
Is what I saw.
But looking at his, there's another, and Chad included this in his social media post, but it's from Soccer Nerds, and it's a little chart.
Yeah.
I can't post this chart,
Man,
obviously,
that
in
is
a
a
podcast.
really good. That is an awesome chart.
Yeah, and if you look, it
I'll link it in the blog post here.
one side is pass accuracy, and the bottom is shots on target per 90 minutes. And this was all the forwards, I think, in Mexico, right? Well, the also named the Sporting target at one point, Lucas Cavallini, who is probably going to Vancouver,
Oh, I didn't even see him on this plot.
is in the bottom left quadrant.
Ooh.
Or it's not even a quadrant.
Basically
the
the-
little bottom left square.
So which means low shots on target per 90 and low pass accuracy.
Right. The guy with the highest shots on target per 90 minutes. The guy who's farthest up to the right in this quadrant that's combined with pass accuracy and shots
Is our boy.
is Alan.
Yeah, that was me that tweeted that.
We're gonna have lots of that little gopher dude or whatever yelling Alan.
Should be the TIFO on opening day.
I'm putting that one in our back pocket for. I didn't know how many people like. I thought it was always one of my favorite like old school internet videos. All those animals like screaming things.
Alan.
That made me laugh. I was like so proud of that tweet. It didn't do exactly what I thought it was.
I saw it. I liked it.
But yes, Alan Pulido is in the top right quadrant, the only one that is in.
There's a couple guys that are
They're on the
borderline,
line.
right on the line.
But he is standing alone in
yes.
in a graph showing shots on target per 90 and pass accuracy.
Right.
That
So I
is
think it was
absolutely
85%
beautiful.
pass accuracy, right? Something like that.
It was.
Which let's just now let's extrapolate. He's with guys who can score in this league. Johnny Russell, Felipe Gutierrez, Shallowy,
Hopefully.
Durso.
Remains to be seen still.
Or who knows? There might be somebody else showing up, right? Bucio, there's going to be guys who can put the ball in the net and score. If he can combine with those guys now, maybe I'm just going to throw weird numbers out there, but what if he scores 12 goals, but he has 12 assists also?
Right.
And that's Russell and Bucio and Shallowy scoring goals also. I'm going to be happy with that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
That's
You know
still
what I mean?
more than we got out of the center forward position in 2018 by a lot.
And 17.
And 17.
Yeah.
And 19. And
Yeah.
Definitely 19.
Combined.
yeah.
So, I mean, he has the capability to do this. I don't think he's had the team in the past to necessarily do this, but with how Sporting has played and can play when they had a little bit of one ounce of confidence they could play, he can combine with them and could do some real damage with not just scoring, but with setting stuff up if he's unselfish enough. I don't know that about him. A lot of strikers are not known to be unselfish, but Vermes working with them, Russell working with them, Felipe working with them, it might work.
Now it sounds like they mentioned on this conference call when he was asked what was it about Sporting KC that excited you. He kept saying the structure of the team. I assume that it means they talked to him about the roster, they talked to him about sort of the philosophy, the style of play. So hopefully,
And I'm sure that shiny training facility was thrown in there.
probably didn't hurt. And Peter seemed to be adamant that we've got a guy who actually fits our system and is the right kind of player. He kept saying that. So hopefully that would mean they've told him. Now, it's one thing to tell him and have him say he agrees. It's another thing to get it on the field. But hopefully they've given him a heads up as like, hey, this is what we expect from you. Peter Vermes expects a little bit more on the defensive side from a lot of his forwards than a lot of other coaches do, and a lot of forwards are used to playing.
Maybe a little more than a little more.
Maybe a little more than a little more.
Definitely more than most coaches ever.
So hopefully he knows that and he's all bought into it. But yeah, I agree. If he can sort of build that chemistry, and he's apparently, even though the transfer window doesn't open officially until February, he's gonna be with Sporting KC and training seemingly in January. Is what it seems.
And that's normal. I mean, I know some people have asked about that, but the transfer window normally doesn't open actually until February or somewhere around there, and it's like February 12th in 2020. But because he has agreed to move, and it's all it is waiting for the paperwork to happen. So if Chivas wanted to, they could say, yes, you must be here.
Right.
But then Sporting would say, F you, you don't get $9.5 million. Yeah. So I mean,
that must be what Peter was talking about, because he kept saying, like, this has been one of the most professional transfers I've ever dealt with. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, that's really normal with any transfer. Like, you're paying the club, X million dollars to bring the player over. There, at this point in the window situation, you're not going to pay for them and then leave them there to play unless you're wanting them to get more playing time for some reason, right? So that's just a typically like, oh, you're buying something from me, I'm going to stop using it now, right? Yeah. So now I'll give it to you while the check clears, and the deed has to be approved to buy something, right? I mean, it's that's just how it goes.
Last thing we need is for him to tear his ACL after we sign on the dotted line for $9.5 million playing for Chivas. Man. But what I was going to say was he's coming in January to start training, which means he's going to start being able to build that chemistry a month before the preseason even really starts with sport, like the preseason competition, whatever it's called. It's not the Desert Diamond Cup anymore, but whatever they've changed it.
I think preseason starts in middle of January.
Oh, it does? Okay. Well, either way, he's going to
be
here.
In preseason.
He's going to have 2 full months, essentially, of training in some way with the club before the first MLS game, which has been different than has happened with some players in the past and in MLS in general.
And there's
but with
been a
Sporting KC.
Noticeable difference, too, like in the way players come in.
Felipe Gutierrez being one example.
Versus, the way Felipe came in. Yeah, and
even Johan, I don't remember if he joined for some reason.
He was off season.
He was off season, but maybe I'm thinking of Johnny. Somebody didn't join the team until the second time they were back out in Arizona, so they missed the whole first stint in Arizona, and they missed all of the January training. Johnny. It might have been Johnny because he was playing with Darby County the whole time, but. Getting Pulido in earlier, he's just going to be able to start building that chemistry sooner, which I think is going to be useful. It's going to help the adjustment time, hopefully.
Yeah. Jimmy, you brought up kind of what brings us to the next thing here of it is interesting on what they were telling him his role was going to be, or if they told him, this much more is going to be required of you on all sides of the ball. And so yes, what that brings us to is how does he fit into this team? Is this guy worth that much money that, the team adapts to the way he's going to play? Does Vermes finally move on from a 4-4-3? A lot of people are talking about Kyrie.
4-3-3.
What did I just say?
4-5-3.
4-5. Yeah, I think you said 4-4-3, but yeah.
4-4-3. 4-3-3. Yeah, there we go. A lot of people have been talking about if him and Kyrie are going to complement each other well to maybe be on the field at the same time. So how do you think? So, okay, let's just look at the starting 11. With Alan Pulido on the roster, what does the starting 11 look like?
Well, in last time we recorded, did we have the defender from Croatia?
I don't think so.
Roberto Puncic?
Yeah. I mean, that's even another guy who we haven't even had a chance to talk about yet because... Sorry, Roberto, you're just not quite...
He's not even in FIFA.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. I mean, Jimmy, we were talking about that before. He doesn't even have a FIFA 20 card. And I think we discovered that it's just because the Croatian top flight is not in the game. It's not in the game.
Right.
So he was in there for 17 when he was in the second Bundesliga with Union Berlin. But yeah, that's not a good sign there.
That's how I do my scouting. How good is this guy? What's his FIFA rating?
Yeah.
sometimes not completely inaccurate, but yeah.
For MLS, it just makes it. MLS is hard to judge because they have to like keep MLS down in the totem in the pecking order.
Right.
So you can't. The best MLS player is probably not given the quality that he deserves. Yeah. Right.
Which is
FIFA.
I will look at the FIFA ratings to compare to other people in the league they came from, or in MLS if they're already in MLS. But other than that, I don't like to make a comparison between a guy coming from the championship to a guy in MLS because they're just not going to be equal.
Well, and I think so. If you're
they're still not
going to
be accurate anyway.
If you're trying to look at FIFA ratings, I think like the top players on the planet, that might be more accurate than you'd find for an MLS player. Because everything else, it has to be relative. Like in order to make the gameplay playable to where a Premier League team beats an MLS team every time, you just have to it's lower for MLS players. It's the normal bar is just lower. And you see that, we were talking about this earlier, you see that when someone gets traded from another league mid-season or a summer transfer, they come over and they go to the Premier League and all of a sudden their stats are like boosted like crazy just because they're in the better league now.
Well, they combine with those other better players.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's stop giving credence to FIFA ratings.
Yeah. I'm not unconvinced that there aren't MLS scouts who use FIFA at least as a starting point at some way to find players. I'm just going to throw it out there.
God, I hope not. Colorado, that's how Colorado's doing it.
Actually, I would expect a lot more to use Football Manager.
Or Football Manager
seems more, in my head, that seems more legit.
Well, I will, again,
I don't know why.
I will take some credit for that.
Yeah, you did do that. It was that 1 year or you keep doing it every year?
I did it for a few years, and then I stopped doing it because it was a lot of work and I wasn't getting any advantage out of it because they would give me free copies of Football Manager and I wouldn't play it.
Well, so what we're referencing is the game asked Thad to rate Sporting Kansas City players for FIFA Manager.
Yeah, and not all players. I'll be honest, not all players, but it was like, compare players X's speed to the rest of the team. Compare this, their
like a ratings adjuster.
And so I was like trying to give them comparisons of who was the better of this, that, or the other.
Okay,
thing.
so do you imagine FIFA does something similar?
They don't have the manpower that Football Manager does.
But you were the manpower for Football Manager.
For one team.
Okay, but so how do we think they're doing this?
They very much, I think, just look at box scores and stat lines. When they do their ratings adjustment, they come out with their team of the week.
How does a box score?
It's probably the Audi index.
How does a box score give you? How does that tell you how fast a player is?
I mean, they just make stuff up.
I think they're making it up.
I mean,
that's kind of the point I'm making here.
And that's why I don't give a lot of credence to FIFA ratings because I've seen them say, this player is fast and this player is not. And I watched them. Yeah, no, it's exact opposite. Gerso is obviously faster than pretty much anybody else. And so
I'm glad we're having this conversation because I got into it on Reddit. I got down a Reddit hole.
There's your first problem is going down a Reddit rabbit hole.
I know. Someone was trying to flash the Puncec stats when that signing happened. And it's like, I made the mistake of saying don't use FIFA stats to judge the rating of a player, and people were vehemently opposed to that idea.
There was people that was agreeing with you, though.
Yeah,
there were.
I've just learned not to argue with fans online.
Yeah,
it's a no-win situation.
Yeah.
It's just if it's possible to have an opinion, someone on Twitter has that opinion.
Yes.
No matter how incorrect it is, how little you had to have paid attention.
And they feel the same way, Cody.
Yeah, I know.
They're having that same conversation on their podcast about you.
That's probably true.
I've been told I was completely wrong about many things, and that's okay because they're wrong.
You've probably been completely wrong about something at some point.
Yes. I'm not going to. Yes. I'm not going to pretend I'm not.
I wanted to see how you'd respond to that.
No. Yeah. Of course, I'm not that full of shit to think I am like perfect. Okay. I've looked at players and been wrong, and I've looked at players and been right. Okay. And I don't think that I know better. This is the thing is I don't think that I know better than Vermes or Zavagnin or those guys. Right.
Yeah.
I have my own opinion. I think sometimes I am right and they are wrong, but I don't think that I know more. I didn't play in a World Cup.
Yeah, see, this is such a. I have this conversation with people. We're way off here, and I don't even care. I've always wanted to like kind of talk about this. So it's like, when you think of the Royals or like Ned Yost, he'll do something, and people are like, "No, you're an idiot. This is what you should have done."
Yeah.
And it's like, I kind of think that too. He's done thing. I'm like, what the hell? What is Ned Yost doing? But then it's when it comes to, I don't know if it's just the access that I have, that I get to like see a little more of the business side of this team, or, the front office side of this team. But it's just, when someone tries to act like that with Vermes, I'm like, why? What makes you on your couch think that you know more than Peter Vermes does right now?
Well, I think, the thing is, like, look, you can look at decisions. Hindsight's always 20/20. You can look at the Ike trade, like we were talking about earlier. Would Ike have helped the defense in 2019? Absolutely. I think that's irrefutable. But at the time, you look at their logic for why they made the trade. There was nobody at the time who knew supposedly what they were talking about that said that they shouldn't have taken that trade. It was the right thing to do tactically and from a business standpoint at the time, given the amount of money. Like, no matter what you think about Peter or Carey or anyone in the front office, you have to acknowledge that they have some level of reasoning behind their decision, and many times it involves information that the average person out in the public might not be privy to, whether that's a long-term plan, whether that's something behind the scenes or whatnot. I think, in my opinion, Peter and Carey and the rest of the front office have earned the benefit of the doubt, at least for another year, to know that, hey, they must know somewhat what they're doing. I mean, they made the playoffs for 8 straight years, and give them a year to fix it.
Well, again, every single person in that staff has played at a higher level than any of us sitting at this table.
Right.
Okay? They've been in coaching classes and have licenses that we have not even dreamed of walking out on the same field. Okay. The closest I can even claim to be near Vermes is I played on the same field he did in Korea. Okay.
Nice.
All right. And that was before
Take
there was
that one
even
to your
really a
grave.
field. Okay?
We've all played on the Children's Mercy Park field
That's true. That's true.
in the
I
media
played-
game.
Well, Vermes never played on that field, though. Is the thing.
That's true.
Yeah. I played on a field that was not only Olympics, but World Cup.
There you go.
Oh.
So
I've played on a Gold Cup field, so how about that?
so have I. Man.
Well, so yeah, that
and the Comets, and I've played on the MASL championship.
Ooh, I played on that field too. But no, that's just always one. It's just a weird dynamic of my sports fandom that I always like. I'll have, I'll listen to people bitch about the Chiefs and bitch about the Royals, but I just have, it's just something in my head when I hear people like, oh, why the hell would they do this? What were they thinking? In my head, I'm like, shut up. Vermes knows so much more than you do.
Well, yeah.
It's just a weird dynamic of,
and it's,
I don't know.
I mean, I will give at least a little more leeway to, why didn't he make that sub? I mean, I'll be doing that sometimes. Like, why didn't he? Why didn't he make that sub at the 70th minute instead of the 85th minute if you're trying to score a goal? Or I mean, I'll do that too. And I'm like, I know. Okay, I've seen parts of the stuff they have to track players. Okay, this guy is not as tired as you think he is. Okay, he's played 3 games in a row. But yes, he's still running at 95% efficiency, right? And the guy that's on that could come in, Suni Saad or somebody like that, yeah, he scored a beautiful goal last year, but he hasn't been doing it in training. Right. He's just on the bench because he's the extra forward, right? And I'm not trying to pick on Suni, so I apologize to Suni.
That is the valid point, though. It's like, maybe that guy that you want to be in there, maybe he hasn't done shit in training for the last 2 weeks and he's been lazy or, just hadn't had it or whatever.
Well, and if they're being too lazy, they're not going to be on the team anyway. But
that's true.
But they see it's down to a science of how these guys perform, right? Mm-hmm. And they have that data fed to them and being given them information from the trainers and all that type of stuff, which may be why one of the trainers was let go. I still don't necessarily agree with that either, but that's just all there. And another thing I want to throw out there is Vermes had a presser before Thanksgiving when he talked about we're going to sign a player on at least one player on every line, blah, blah, blah. But another one of the things that came up in there was they were talking about how somebody asked about how hard it was to let go Seth, basically, and Madronda, Benny, right, all that stuff. And he's, he forget all the things he said, but the key part that I'm trying to get to is he talked about how, he has to make good business decisions for the team. And he goes, I let myself make an emotional decision on a player one time, and it came back to bite us. And I swore to myself I would never do that again. And he said it was back in like 2010 or 2011. And yes, me and Mike have already went back and tried to figure out what that decision was.
Right.
And we may have had a clue, but I don't want to say it because I could be completely wrong.
Yeah, that's probably a good call.
But Vermes is not stupid. I mean, we may not agree with his decision or this or that or something else, but the guy learns, okay? When he took over the Wizards / Becoming Sporting, he had coached youth soccer. Mm-hmm. He played at a high level, but he'd only coached youth soccer. He hadn't even been an assistant coach. Well, he'd been assistant coach for like the U20s, right, with the national team. But he hadn't been a regular assistant coach anywhere. He hadn't done any of that sort of thing. He hadn't had to make those calls on a regular basis. So he's been learning ever since. And he's been studying, like, I mean, there was an article a couple years ago about how he was like learning how to deal with millennials. Mm-hmm. You know?
Well, so I think that's what
I want to know what class that is, because
I guess that's what like the disconnect there is. You know, a fan of sports, something happens, you're allowed to be like, nope, I disagree, whatever. But I guess just my respect or knowledge of the way Vermes like operates all of this, it at least, I guess the difference there is that even if I do disagree with something, I know in my head I'm like, he obviously like had a very good reason.
He's got a reason for doing it.
Yeah, he's got a plan. He's got something that, you know, even if I don't understand it,
that doesn't mean it'll work out.
Right.
But there was logic behind it. He's not just making things up as he goes.
Right. And it's like for me, I have a personal policy that I try to think through every decision that's important, right? And then once I've made that decision, I don't regret it, okay? Because I made the best decision I could at the time with the knowledge I had.
Exactly.
And, you know, sometimes it's flipping a coin, right? I mean, literally, it's like heads, I go left, okay? Whatever it is. Sometimes I have to do that. I don't regret those decisions. Some of them turned out crap, okay? But
no
I
point
made
in regretting
the best
them,
one that I could make at that time. If I had the same information to do it again, I would make the same decision based upon what I knew.
See, you listen to Shades of Blue, you learn about life.
And that's where somebody like Vermes is. He's like, oh man, I made a mistake. That didn't work.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, I learned. I'm gonna do the next thing. I got a lot of respect for Vermes. He's not a perfect person by any means, but he's a lot better than a lot of people give him credit for, and he's still learning.
Yeah, and I think one of my biggest, for lack of a better word, complaints about Vermes is, if anything, he's committed to his system to a fault at times, where he gets so like trusts it so much and gets so rigid that whether it's within game decisions or whatnot, he will not stray away from the system. Historically, I do think, I'm not saying that he's going to change. We're going to see a 4-3-3 next year. I don't think we're going away from that. But
I did want to touch more on that. So yeah.
Or am I jumping ahead?
No, yeah.
It's probably a very good segue to get off of us not talking about regular soccer to
what I do think is interesting, and I have not confirmed this, but I have my theories, is if you look at, Sporting KC historically has put out this lineup graphic where they show you exactly what their formation is. Something weird happened halfway through last year where they stopped putting out a lineup graphic that showed a formation. All of a sudden it was in list form and everybody freaked out. Now we can't see who's playing where.
But there was one game that they did show a non-4-3-3.
There was, and MLS
and you
Soccer.
And I talked about it, and it made Robo mad. You asked Robo about it.
I did, yeah. He was not happy.
He was like, "Oh, slow news day today." Like, whatever. This is the first time they've ever put out a lineup that wasn't 4-3-3. Like, that's a big deal.
We were like making conversation in an elevator, and I was like, "Oh, something happened."
Okay,
but
sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
They start putting it out in a list format, and I started trying to pay more attention. And it's hard, formations can change in game even depending on the situation. But it made me wonder. And my theory is Vermes has started to tweak a little bit some of the formation tactics, and I'm not saying he's moving from a 4-3-3 to a 4-1-2-1-2 or anything crazy, but he might be just, it's more of a 4-1-4-1, or it's more of a 4. There are options that I think that has something to say.
If you look at Swope Park Rangers lineups that the USL puts out, a lot of them have been 4-1-4-1s.
Yeah,
and if we know anything about Swope Park, the whole point is that the two teams play the same style for the easy pipeline. So they know they know that no one's going to really care about or talk about the formation of the SPR.
Right.
Sorry, no longer SPR, RIP.
SKC2.
SKC2, nice and boring, but whatever.
All that is to say is I think there might be a chance, especially depending on how some of these players that come in, that Peter might be a little bit more open than he was in the past to doing some formation tweaks, maybe not on a consistent basis, but on a game-by-game basis or on a situational basis.
Well, if you go back to the beginning of last year with the players they had, with Fontas and the expectations of everything that everybody could do, Peter talked about how this will allow me to do some formation changes. He literally said that. He did. Okay. And then things fell apart and we never really saw all of that. But I also think this is one of the things that, having talked with Vermes a lot of times, is we put way too much emphasis on it's a 4-3-3.
Yes, that's
right?
where I was hoping you were going with this.
So a 4-1-4-1 is essentially a 4-3-3.
It's not that different.
A 4-5-1 is essentially the same thing as the 4-3-3.
They've been fluid for a while, I think.
And if you look at how over time, Sporting was the super aggressive, we're going to win the ball in the opponent's end and blah, 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 and everything, right? Everything was high press. We're going to throw every single thing to win that ball and all that stuff. And then it's become okay, the line of opposition is a little bit farther back, and we're going to trap them in, and we're not going to allow them openings and blah, blah, blah.
Play out of the back.
And then it's become more of a possession, trying to win everything and control the ball always in their end. It changes over time. But I mean, I've said for a long time that when they're in the defense, it was 4-5-1. Mm-hmm. And when it's in the attack, it's really more of a 3-4-3 or a 3-3-4 because the outside back goes so far up. That title 4-3-3, 4-5-1, for whatever, doesn't mean nearly as much as what roles they have in that game. Yeah. So in some games, it's Zusi was the guy who's pegged to go forward all the time and team up with Russell. Some games it was Lobato, Madronda, Sanovic, whoever on the left back to go forward.
Luis Martins.
Yes. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of 2019, when they were actually being successful, it was a little bit weird because Sanovic was going forward.
Was that? Man, remember when we thought they were going to win 4 trophies?
Remember when they were olaying Toluca in Mexico?
Yeah. Oh, those were the days, man.
But it was actually Sanovic going forward a lot.
Yeah.
And Zusi staying more back. It was what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
So there's just all these little tweaks that people don't give him credit for because they say, lined up in a 4-3-3 again.
4-3-3.
Vermes can't change anything.
Okay, well, but still, I think if, whether they're showing a 4-3-3 formation in the lineup sheet or, anything, I think there will be a difference if we ever see Pulido and Kyrie on the field at the same time.
Yes.
That is a formation change.
That would
there's not 2 wingers on the field anymore. Right. But do you think we'll see that?
I mean, at some point, probably for some reason or another, whether it's
even if it's mid-game
out of necessity due to injury or
when
whether
Johnny gets red carded and they're playing a 4-3-2. No,
or when Shallowy fails to score a goal halfway through the season again.
That won't happen. He scored a goal at the end of last year.
That won't happen. Little brother will score goals this year.
For some reason we might get behind and he takes off one of the midfielders and puts Kyrie up there to throw numbers forward and it becomes like a
4-2-4,
4-2-4 or 4-1-3-2, crazy things. It'll happen at some point. I don't know that we'll ever see just a standard 4-4-2 with Pulido and Shelton up top, but maybe. Yeah. Who knows?
And I'm always trying to watch what other big teams' formations are trying, basically laid out as. So I'm curious, what the next phase of the cool, it still seems
trendy formation.
Yeah, it still seems like most teams in the world play either a 4-3-3, a 4-2-3-1, or some version of that couple. I mean, the better teams, it seems most of them are. People are going to probably tell me I'm wrong. So.
Well, I mean, they're playing sort of a 3-man back line with more wing backs pushing forward, and we're adding center backs apparently, grabbing as many as we can with Puncec and reports about the Argentinian guy whose name I can't pronounce.
Lautaro Giannetti.
Yeah, so who knows?
Which was a reported $2 million bid, which was rejected. I promised we would talk about this, and we didn't.
Well, we are.
We are now, currently, yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, the Sporting apparently have offered $2 million, and it was rejected. The The clause in his contract is apparently somewhere between $6 million and $10 million.
The release clause.
The release clause.
Yeah. There's conflicting reports as to what it might be, but it's a lot more than $2 million. And so, but it is interesting to me because I think when we first saw this, I think we understandably thought this must be a rumor from before the Puncic deal.
Right. It could be.
And it could be. But some information started to come out from Argentinian reporters that sort of made it seem like, oh, maybe this was a more recent bid, which is interesting because then you're like, okay, you start counting up the center backs we have. You got Beasler and Barat, and then you have Graham Smith, who we protected in the expansion draft, so they must have some plans for in some way.
And Fontes is the last one that you get
Puncic, and then there's Fontes. Well, yes. So,
what the hell,
Just
man?
because somebody is protected doesn't really mean they have plans, because, like, at one point I wasn't going to protect even 5 guys, so but that would be embarrassing.
Thad was on a burn this bitch down there for a while.
That was a direct quote.
No,
what he
definitely
said.
not.
I was going to protect 3 international players because I had to.
Yeah.
And Melia.
Yeah. No, I there was a point where I was like, does he have to protect 11? Like, can he leave them? But I just think it's interesting. You know, there is one, Fontas is hurt still. He's going to be hurt for another few months. So maybe that's part of the deal. They technically can buy out a contract in the offseason. Maybe they secure another center back like this Argentinian guy, and maybe they're like, okay, let's cut our losses with Fontes. I don't know. Maybe not. I have no indication.
That would be an injection of capital that
Yeah.
a lot of people would like.
That would.
So much money that we can just say, fuck off, Fontes. Yeah, that'd be
And he's
crazy.
a nice guy. I don't want to badmouth the poor guy.
No,
He's a good
he's
guy.
always been very nice when we've talked to him, but he just, things sometimes don't work out, and so far it hasn't really worked out. And I mean, he and Beasler both being left-footed center back. You know, they talked about this might be an advantage having 2 left-footed center backs. That's not something you see very often, but he certainly didn't have the athleticism that Ike had, and I think that Ike was able to cover up a lot of the mistakes that some of the other defenders made. Zusi is not as fast as he once was. Seth certainly wasn't known for his blazing speed. Martins might be a little faster than Seth, but
If you look at his FIFA's card, he's pretty fast, right?
Martins weirdly faster than Gerso. No, I don't know. Yeah, so I think it'll be interesting to see if they do pull the trigger, whether it be on this center back or another one or what, and who else they might add. We haven't added a midfielder yet. Do they add a defensive midfielder? I think a lot of people might say it might help to add another defensive midfielder to back up or push Ilie for that role, or do they add
an heir to Roger?
An heir to Roger, or do they add a replacement for Quasi? He came in as a number 10, and then Felipe kind of fell on our laps on a free transfer, but without Croze, maybe Buzio steps up more into that more consistent number 10 role.
Fucking
But
better. I want
And
to see more Buzio this year.
that's one question of if we do get a midfielder, who, where, how much, and all that goes into play. There's so much unknown in that, but I would love to see Buzio play, 25 games this year.
yeah, I would not hate to see. I love Ilie, but I would not hate to see us bring in another sort of number 6 defensive midfielder. One, because as much of an Iron Man as Ilie is, like, he just cannot play 3,600 minutes a season. Like, you got to have somebody who can at least give him a rest. But also, I think it wouldn't be a bad thing to have somebody push. I think when Ilie is on his game, he's very good. His passing ability is something that Sporting KC hasn't had since Rosell. But I also don't think it would be a bad thing to have someone come in and just push him in practice and make sure that he does stay on top.
Well, what
of his
about
game.
you don't think Gutierrez is his backup?
I think he sort of is by necessity, but I think Felipe's better as an 8
Yeah, I agree.
than he is as a 6. I think he
Thad
can.
might disagree with that, but
I think he's good as a 6. If you notice, they did better when he was playing there.
Yeah, we used to we talked about that a lot on this pod. That the record, the team.
And again, I love Ilie. He's a great guy. I mean, he could marry my daughter if he
And
wanted to.
Vermes kind of
He's the
found
nicest
that,
guy.
He kind of found that pattern that was like, he starts Ilie on the bench,
And then he'd bring him in.
and then he brings him in.
Yeah.
They did that for like
Yeah.
5 games in a row.
So I think part of that depends on the reason that I think Felipe can play the 6 just fine, but the way that the team has been constructed, and unless Buzio takes another big step, is it leaves sort of a gaping hole in that number 10 role. You take Felipe out of it, there hasn't been somebody who's been able to step up and have the sort of creativity that he's had in the past.
It's a difficult position to find, though.
Yeah, and Sporting doesn't really have a 10. I mean, they don't really play with a true 10. It's really two 8/10s.
Sure.
I mean, they create from both sides. I mean, one might have a little more creativity and ability than the other, and depending on the situation. But I mean, to me, the biggest thing that they can't replace with anybody they have is Roger.
Mm-hmm. Which is scary because if he gets hurt again at his age, I mean, that's what people sort of pinned a lot of the struggles in 2019 on was Roger went down. Just wait till Roger gets back, and by the time he came back, the hole was so deep that I don't know that
I was one of those people.
But I mean, Roger, his work rate off the ball, his physicality, he just mucks up passing lanes. He does it better than anyone else in Sporting KC. Doesn't have a 1-to-1 replacement for him right now.
No. The closest would be Felipe Hernandez.
Yeah.
Felipe Gutierrez. If we can find another Felipe out there. I mean, Felipe Hernandez obviously doesn't have the experience. I mean, he's where Roger was when Roger was a young player.
Right.
Roger wasn't Roger when he was fresh out of college. You know what I
Right.
mean? It took him a long time to get to that spot. Hernandez could possibly be that guy. I mean, they have some similarities, but Gutierrez is actually the closest to him right now for being able to just do that role.
Yeah.
If we can find another Felipe Gutierrez-ish person, I mean, we were joking about that a long time ago. Was we just need 3 Felipes.
I'll take it.
Man, what a midfield.
Where do we sign up?
Yeah.
So if we could get 3 Felipes, 2 more Felipes, we'd be great.
They haven't finished the clone room at Pinnacle yet.
They're working on it.
No, they got everything else there.
No, there's a room for it though.
Yeah. That's a Cerner Children Mercy thing right there, man.
Okay, guys, have we covered most of it? We've got weeks in the future. We can do this. Jimmy was here. We had a lot to talk about for the first time.
We did.
Okay, well, Jimmy, thank you very much for showing up. Oh, Thad's got something.
I mean, I know we mentioned Roberto
Puncec?
I look at Jimmy to say because I don't want to be that wrong.
We're all guessing Puncec.
I did like the highlights I watched of him. I know highlights are highlights, but he reminded me of Colin, or Aurelian Colin, in that he was willing to like go out there and he was like Sporting has always been at their best when they had like one center back that stayed back and one that ranged forward and could break shit up and then get back when they needed to, right? Colin and Ike would be he looked like that kind of equivalent kind of guy, and he did a lot of interfering with plays, like just breaking them up, interrupting passes and stuff and headers and just pushing guys down when he had to.
Botan kind of tried to do that at times last year. I don't know. Sometimes he did it really well, and other times he looked like, what are you doing?
And I think it was who he was out there with.
Yeah.
If Fontes was out there, they didn't quite know what to do.
Easler's the guy that stays back.
Yeah, he's always been that guy.
Yeah.
When he tries to go forward, it scares me because then the guy back doesn't always have the positional awareness.
Right.
That's what Beasler I thought was always good.
That's
was like
where he's great.
Was like figuring out where to be to cut off whatever screwed up in front of him.
Yeah, and Fontes always seemed to step up at the wrong time.
Yeah, and actually I think Daniel had mentioned this and I'd mentioned this, but one of the things that Fontes is because he was a left-footed player, he probably always played left center back in his life, and now he's like the right center back, so it's like throwing him off like just that little bit. Like I don't have this guy to my right side, so then he's trying to step up and he's trying to be Ike when he can't be Ike.
Yeah,
just all those things went wrong. If you had Ike and Fontes, it may have been a completely different story.
Might have been.
I know I've said that before, but I just wanted to bring up the part about Roberto.
Yeah.
Because that's what he looked like in the highlights I watched. Again, I don't...
And he's bald. Looked a little bit like Colin.
Put too much... he had hair.
Oh, okay.
I thought he had hair too.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Different highlights, I guess.
Barat's bald.
Yeah.
Hungarian hitman, that's what I call him.
That's his name for sure. It more fitting for him than Namath.
Although PV could also be the Hungarian hitman, just a different kind of hitman. He both looks like...
Indeed.
Yeah, so...
All right.
Okay, Jimmy, thank you very much.
Thank you guys. We'll do it
You
again.
saved the pod.
I don't know about that.
So yeah, listen to No Other Pod. What's your Twitter handle? Tell the people your Twitter handle.
Mine is at JCMack03, JCMack03.
All right. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Blue Testament KC. And join us at thebluetestament.com and leave us a comment. We will talk to you soon. Thad, say something prophetic.
I already have.
He was looking down at his phone, so I wanted to throw you off guard there. We'll talk soon. Alan!
The other side don't seem so 3 own goals ain't all that rough. Our skipper has just been sent off. Supporters strong have all gone soft. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. Give me beer or whiskey, wine or gin, anything to shake this mood I'm in. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking.